Welcome everyone to the Sci-Fi Queens podcast where we celebrate all things sci-fi and science. But today we're doing something a tiny bit different. You know I'm a super fan of Mr. Eric Williamson. He is here today with Andy, and they're going to be talking to us about an amazing project they have going on. And if you're wondering why isn't it sci-fi queens.net in the bottom scrolling as they usually does, no, not today. Today we're scrolling the Kickstarter project link for Thor. Okay, and let's check in with our guests before we even begin. How are you guys doing? Andy, we're gonna start with you because you're kind of like Siamese twins now. It's kind of stuck together there. What's happening?
I'm doing great. Again, nice, easy day for the most part, so I'm in the great mood. As you can see to my left, we have Eric Williamson here. Eric is not in Arizona tonight. Eric is in Lowell, Massachusetts with me in the Mill City. So he's visiting for a nice long weekend, and he's a little bit jet lagged, so I'm going to carry him as much as I need to tonight. But we got him a nice big Dunkin' coffee, so he should be feeling great.
He will be just fine with some Boston coffee. Okay,
there you go.
That for sure. So Eric, how you doing? How was your flight in? What was going on? You've been up for a tiny bit, right? Just like a tiny bit.
Oh, yeah. No, I just flew in today, and boy, are my arms tired.
Oh, you had to go there, didn't you?
No. Yeah, no, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking me that. It's so exciting to actually be here in Boston with Andy. We've been friends for years, but have never actually been side by side. And this project has just been such an incredible one that it's elevated our friendship, taken it to the next level, and then knowing that we were going to get to meet with you today just was extra impetus for us to
Listen, I could not find out that you guys are doing this project and not have you on. I mean, I love Thor. Thor's huge. He's amazing. I love the lore of Thor. But we need to talk about what you guys did with it, because we've studied Thor mythology. We've seen the movies. We've read all sorts of different projects that have been out there about Thor. It's slightly different take on it. But I want to know about your take on this. Why Thor? What made you choose of all the mythologies out there, Thor?
I'm going to defer to Eric just to get started, because the reality here is I didn't set the course of this book. I came in as an afterthought and largely overtook the book. And I'll explain why in a second, because it's kind of fun and it's a little different. But we'll start with why Eric wanted to write about Thor and where this project started, because it is a completely different Thor than you've ever read before, while simultaneously being very much the Thor you know and love.
Yes.
Yeah, and that really is sort of the impetus of why I wanted to do this project. One was coming off of the heels of two big projects when we were The Voyage and before we weren't anywhere, which allowed me to really explore two particular comic book illustrated novel styles that I really love, which is that illustrated graphic novel merged with sort of the hybrid poetic narrative and lyricism. And I knew I wanted to take that style and catapult it further. But I wasn't quite sure which project I wanted to attach that to. And I've always had a deep-seated love of Norse mythology, Thor from the Marvel Comics. And I had, prior to starting working on this project, been really deep diving into the origin stories of Norse mythology. Where do these stories come from? What do they really mean? How do they differ from what we are presented in today's modern contemporary canon of movies and comics?
Exactly.
And how the Norse mythology, the true roots of it, are so divergent, so different from what the current sort of zeitgeist around Thor is. And I saw that as just a beautiful, fertile ground to tell a story that exposes and reveals and honors the true roots of the Norse mythos, but does so with my own sort of creative flair.
I'm
that
so afraid for Thor.
allows me to explore action and adventure and romance and love and poetry and elevated lyrical excellence in writing and craft, and show this story in a completely unique and different life than anyone's experienced it, whether they're watching the Avengers or the Thor Marvel movie or they're reading their Marvel comic books. And while you will identify the roots as being honest, true, and genuine, and something you're familiar with, we have crafted it with such loving attention to the actual poetic and prose eddas that are the source of a lot of these myths. And so, long way to drive to the store to get your answer, I know, but that was my catalyst for this, why I wanted to do this project, and that's before even bringing Andy
So
on.
why am I here?
Why are you here? Why did
Sure.
you get dragged into this?
Exactly. So the 2-second debrief beforehand is Eric and I originally met on the League of Comic Geeks. I think that's been mentioned before.
Yes.
And my handle on there is Norse Fury. And again, I have a long-term background in familiarity and enjoyment and scholarship when it comes to things related to Norse mythology. Since I was a kid, I've always just loved the mythologies of different pantheons. When I was like 6, I loved Egyptian mythology. By the time I was 8 or 10, I was fully absorbed into Greco-Roman mythology. And that carried me pretty much all the way into adulthood when I said, you know what, my ancestry is Germanic, Austrian, Norwegian, Hungarian. I really should know more about those types of legends and myths. And I really got deeply into Norse mythology, and it's never stopped ever since. So when Eric started this project, my role was very, very small. I was basically intended to be a beta reader, look at it, let him know if he's doing anything that is really offensive to the mythology, if he is blurring too much of what Marvel tells you the story is supposed to be versus what the mythology is actually.
Yes.
Trying to identify where there are essentially plot holes or continuity errors or things that just don't make sense in the mythology. And then we just kind of kept evolving. Then it turned into, think about it this way. And we're working together to craft, all right, what does Thor's hammer really look like? And Eric's making sketches and I'm telling him, try this, or what if it did that instead? And he's like, well, that's a really interesting idea. And we just played with that. And then it turned into, okay, I like Elder Futhark.
Yes.
Old Norse runes, technically the ones that would have predated the Vikings. They would have been using the younger Futhark. And ultimately, anytime I see a Marvel comic or really any comic book that uses the runes, I will actually sit there and try to translate them. And if they don't translate into something resembling English, and I'll forgive that not everything works perfectly because it is a phonetic language versus a one-to-one cipher.
Yes, not everything translates quite
it
as
doesn't.
Clearly as the language it came from.
Exactly. Again, certain letters, they're not that hard. And a Sawillo looks like an S and it sounds like an S. A Rado sounds like an R and it looks like an R. But God forbid anybody try to use the letter V. V does not translate neatly into Elder Futhark. It's a mess. You could use a B or an F or any number of different things depending on what feels right in the moment. So
it could change the meaning of everything you just
completely
tried to translate.
So Eric wanted me to basically be the quote-unquote rune master. Come in and help for little bits and pieces here and there to translate some runes. And I pitched him a silly little concept at first. I said, last year the two of us had done a big read-through of all of Neil Gaiman's Sandman. And Shakespeare. That's right. We did both last year. And I was really taken by something in the Endless Nights story, where you had things for all the different endless characters, one of which was 15 portraits of despair. And there were all these little vignettes in different styles about the character. And I said, Eric, what if we explored something in the margins, essentially? What if we had the Elder Futharks as actual characters, where each rune is an entity unto itself? And they're holding an thing together in this liminal cosmic space commenting or feeding back additional information about the story that informs the story and makes it more interesting or more dynamic.
Yes.
A completely unique perspective. And initially, we had the worst idea ever. We had pitched, what if we made it a border treatment, like like on a rune stone that wraps around the first page of each chapter, and roughly they would have been the length of about a long tweet, like 300 characters.
Oh no, that's a lot.
It was awful. I did
much.
I did it once just for the preliminary cover, and the whole thing translates and it sets it up, and it was kind of fun, but we realized it was going to be impossible. Yeah. So we've moved my places around, but ultimately it turned into I'm writing a prologue to every one of his chapters that either feeds off of something in those chapters or builds on something, a concept that's happening in those chapters. And we can get into that as we're going. So I'm rambling a little bit, but
go ahead.
From beta reader to editorial content to now I'm actually collaborating on the writing itself.
That's probably his plan all along. You know that, right?
It probably was. Mm-hmm. He's a crafty guy.
Maybe.
Yeah, sneaky. Maybe. I call him sneaky. Sneaky that way.
It's really interesting in that respect because when Andy came on board this project, like you said, he came on sort of as just a beta reader and as my friend who was going to help me proof and read.
Moral support, things like that.
Yeah, and just, he's been a great supporter, and our friendship has evolved over many, many years. And it's just, I knew it was just a valuable friend to have along for the ride on this project. And it's something he's passionate and loves. And that's really important to me. I want people that are going to.
He really didn't have to twist my arm on this one.
That love the material and that we can just. I mean, we meet literally every Thursday and geek out for 2 hours, like every Thursday for months now.
Yeah, the concept was supposed to be we meet once a week, usually on Thursday, and some meetings might be very short, some might be very long. There's no such thing as a short meeting.
No such thing.
A short meeting is about 2 hours at least.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just, so this we have been living and breathing for it's got to be about a year now almost.
Give or take. And
when Andy had come on with us talking about doing the ideas of him being the rune master and doing some scroll work and some light rune sort of cartography on the pages.
Yeah.
He had already had my full beta copy of the first book manuscript. And as you can see, he's flagged it all up.
Oh, he's got notes.
He's got notes. This is his copy here. I had mailed this to him, and so that he and even his lovely wife, they both read the manuscript and, just went at it like with a fine-tooth comb, which was perfect.
And again, we brought very differing perspectives. Again, my wife, while she appreciates Marvel's Thor, and she has a loose familiarity with the mythology just from me, she's by no means an expert on it. She's reading it for the overall plot of the story. How does it go beyond just being about mythology? What is the real fiction side of it? The characters, the world building, things of that nature. So,
which is a really good perspective to have as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just the expert side of it, but can someone who doesn't have the expertise, the knowledge, the background, enjoy this book?
Absolutely. That's essential in a beta read. And I have a few other copies that went out into the universe as well to some other beta readers of different temperaments and other disciples. And that's been very valuable because they all come at it from different angles, whether they fixate on the lore or the action or the romance or the poetry or the lyricism. They all find something that resonates with them. But my point I was saying earlier was, so bringing Andy on board, he had already had the entire scope of the first book under his thumb before we even talked about him being a part of the book. So when the natural evolution of his involvement went from beyond just helping me with some graphics to actually, would you like to take a stab as a author and be a co-author on this book with me? So it will say Eric Williamson with Andy. not just Andy penciled on the bottom of his puppet doll shoe, but but like literally be a part of the book as a co-creator on it. And and Andrew at first, and I'm going to speak for you a little bit, was
That's okay.
I think it was an appealing and somewhat maybe intimidating
A little bit.
Scope, just because of the creative nature of it versus his
And that's it. In my world, yes.
Background.
As an architect, there is an artistic component to what I do on a daily basis. But what I'm doing is in a visual medium drawing. Now, yes, I have always had an aptitude for being articulate, loquacious, having a good vocabulary. And yeah, I have dabbled in creative writing every once in a while. But I never seek out publication. Largely stopped a lot of that after high school. So when Eric offered the opportunity, it's like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a shot, see what comes of it. If you hate what I do, tell me, and we pitch it in the trash and we move on, and no one's hurt. But to my, again, I don't know whether I want to say shock or relief, every time I brought Eric something new to listen to, he just kept saying, I need more. Bring me the next one. Keep showing me more. And it seemed like it became a challenge of how do I keep improving what I'm doing with each installment, until by the time we got to the second to last one, and the last one was very special, we can talk about that one later, the chapter 9 sub-story. Now again, 9 from a numerology perspective is extremely important throughout the Norse mythology. You've got 9 realms, you've got 9 mothers of Heimdall. 9 just keeps popping up over and over and over. Odin hung from the tree for 9 days. So I started writing a different type of origin story. And lo and behold, I just kept writing it until eventually I had written, instead of most of these, which are usually like a page in length, maybe 2.
Yes.
What did this one come out? Like 20 pages, 25 pages? I basically wrote my own chapter.
No, basically what was happening was Andrew was slowly hijacking the Thor book and decided to write his own Thor book that my book would just become the container for. So, yeah.
You're just the figurehead in your own book,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I was like, well, I'm glad I could provide you the scaffolding to tell your own story, Andrew. But it was fantastic, because what Andrew has done is he has taken the core story that I have developed, and he's added a layer on top of it that acts as a prelude to each chapter, that adds a dimension that's completely different from the narrative story of Thor as a character and his sort of meandering through the story and the events that befall or he interacts with. But he's added a level of craft and mythology and a tone of voice that is a direct dotted line to the mythology in the past. It is sourced from the legit material. I mean, if you are a Norse mythological scholar and you're reading this book, not only are you going to get a kick-ass story, but then you're going to be like, well, who is this guy that's writing this really interesting and innovative take on the true source material that I'm, as a PhD in Norse mythology, never thought of before, right? Like just a completely different angle. And it's fueled with the creative spirit, which I love. It's challenging. It's difficult. If you like puzzles, it engages that part of your brain while the other part of the brain tickles the other part. So you get sort of this duality in the story. And you can go as deep as you want to go in Andy's stories, which I really love. You can just read them surface level, and they complement the main narrative. They're like a spice that it just adds additional flavor to my story.
Yeah. Think of Eric and I as basically playing tennis with one another throughout the book. I'll make references that feed into what he's saying. He'll make comments that play off of what I'm saying. And as I told Eric from day one, my goal in this is always the same. I want to elevate his writing to make the story as good as it can be. And that has taken on an additional dimension where I wanted every single chapter, every installation, every time the runes are speaking to you, in their own distinct voice, so they all feel different. They're not just the same. It's not Andrew Kollar talking at you the whole time. It's also not meant to be just a regurgitation of, oh, this is the myth as it was laid down. I took it on as a challenge to say, okay, where are the parts of the myth that are missing, that have been lost to centuries, or where different interpretations of the myth suddenly say, well, all right, almost every version of the story of Yggdrasil, it's an ash tree. Well, if you look at the properties of the tree, it upholds a lot closer to a yew tree. Well,
Yeah.
I came up with a radical new approach to it where both of those things can be true at the same time and a whole lot more. And I would sit there and say, all right, I'm looking through dozens of different translations and interpretations from the last 100, 200 years and saying, you know what? This scholar suggested it in this language. I can play off of that and give you something a little more robust and interesting than you had otherwise. So again, I'm sure that there are some scholars that might look at what I'm writing and say, this is a fascinating new interpretation. And I'm sure another would sit there and look at it and go, oh, this is obnoxious. This guy is so bald, it's so pretentious.
It depends where they're at. It depends where they're at.
In all things, nothing would make me happier than having two scholars debating the validity of it, because I had so much fun with it.
What you're saying is actually what I wanted to ask you guys, each of you, is what do you expect or hope for readers to take from the story as you guys have created this story? And now you started telling Andy about those that have an understanding of the Norse mythology, those with, who are scholars. But what about the individuals that may not have that background, maybe don't know anything about the Norse gods? What would you like them to get from this reading?
If they took nothing else away and they went with the most basic, superficial read of it, take it as entertainment. Take it as an inspiration to say, you know what? There's something absolutely fascinating and captivating about Norse mythology that makes me want to read more. Because, all right, yes, I'm going to provide you with my framework and interpretation and creative exploration, all still trying to honor the mythology at its core. But I know that there are times where I'm going to make a reference and almost no one's going to get it. Perfect example. In one of the early chapters, I take you on a drunken night with Odin's ravens, Hugin and Munin. And I have them hanging out with Oblivion's heron. Oblivion's heron occurs in a single line of the Havamal. It's essentially an epic poem that's attributed to Odin himself with basically life advice for how you live a robust, good life.
And most people will not put those together, even if they've read it.
Exactly.
Because it's a single line.
Exactly. So again, this is a good example where I'm not going to be exhausted, but I am now in the process of going through Eric's side of the story as well as mine, and I'm going to pull out extracts like that, and we're going to put a little bit of back matter in this, a little bit of a glossary that says, all right, where did some of these ideas come from?
Yes.
What is this? And give a little extra context so that, you know what, if you really are reading it and you're going, man, this guy is killing me. I mean, there's chapter 9, perfect example. There are a handful of spots I actually looked up the Old Norse word for certain things. Nobody is going to know what this is.
Yes.
If you are a preeminent scholar, the Jackson Crawfords of the world, they'll know what those words mean.
Yes.
Your average person, absolutely not. And I don't want you to feel like you are being gatekeeped out of that. You should have an opportunity to at least see who are these people, who are these gods and goddesses or other. And
I think having a glossary in the back of the book or in the front or somewhere where people can go, oh, that's what that means, makes it a lot easier.
Exactly. I still want it to be approachable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't want to have to buy a book, read it, while opening your computer because you gotta have Google open because you gotta understand what the writer is saying. Yeah, that's not enjoyable reading.
No.
Yeah,
but having it all there clearly laid out makes so much sense.
Well, tangential to that, and I want to stay on your question, Nita, but just to that point, what that does is we we see that same vision that you just mentioned, which is we are looking at everything we craft from the eyes of the different tiers of potential readers. And also then that is informing design elements. It's because to both you and to Andy's point, we don't want to put in that highfalutin archaic word as a tool to intimidate a reader or to create an unnecessary hurdle or roadblock or speed bump. It's in service of the story. And so we are then thinking about how we present that information that might be more obtuse to the general reader in a way that is visually dynamic, or as a way that pulls you in, still entertains. I might not know exactly what I'm reading, but it still is interesting, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to turn the page. And then if I want to seek out more information, well,
it's there.
Check out the back of the book.
Yes. I understand. And I think it's a fantastic idea because I've been toying with that concept. Because a lot of the things that in the short stories that I'm trying to write, there are words that they're not just in Spanish, but they're specific to certain areas that if you don't know, you just don't know what they mean, what they're referring to. And I'm going, I don't want it to be challenging. I want it to be something that people can read and understand. And I'm like, a glossary, some sort of dictionary. Like I'm trying to play with the idea of what to do to make it easy and convenient for someone to go, oh, that's what they're talking about. And, and I think it's a fantastic idea that you guys thought about that because there's so much about mythology that we don't know, that we don't remember. There's a lot of language that needs to be translated, but doesn't have the same feel, doesn't have the same emotional impact when translated. So sometimes using the original words is important in order to really have that impact.
It's true. And you're actually touching on something that's very important that Eric has been extremely sensitive to and that I found incredibly helpful. Because again, Eric is writing a story that's set in 1990s Seattle. So you very much have that Seattle weird, quirky vibe to it. Yes. But again, it's semi-modern. We're really only going back 30 years. On the flip side, everything I'm writing is coming from the perspective of runes that in theory have existed for hundreds and thousands of years.
Yes.
So again, I have moments where I might slip into some modern vocabulary, and there's a handful of spots where I've said, you know what? The word is absolutely perfect for being descriptive of what I need it to, and I'm willing to accept that there's a little bit of an anachronism to it. But there's other ones where Eric will look at it and go, we really need to fine-tune this word because this feels too modern. It doesn't have the gravitas that we need coming from an ancient source. So then we'll go back and we'll refine it together, and we'll troubleshoot how do we get that to really get the deepest meaning that fits with the identity of that character.
That is beautiful. I absolutely love that. Now, how do you make your collaboration work with each other? Because you're bound to bump heads, right? You're two different individuals with two different ideas and concepts, and you want the same goal, right? You want this amazing book. You want this amazing story to be told. You want the success of this project, but you will bump heads. That's natural, right? How do you manage that?
Well, I will say by being a vicious taskmaster. No. I'm just saying, seriously though, what Andy mentioned earlier about us, how we were working at the very beginning. He mentioned Mjolnir, the hammer.
Yes.
And he mentioned how he would send me some thoughts, or he was thinking about something, and then I would go and draw something and send it back to him. Well, at the very beginning of this project, one of the things I was doing was hand drawing my vision of what the real Mjolnir would look like. Not the one that you see in the comic books, not the one that the Thor, the guy in the Avengers.
Chris Hemsworth.
Chris
Hemsworth,
not
yeah.
the one Chris Hemsworth has in there. But I was drawing it based on what I had read in the source material and the way that it was forged. And there's a specific origin story for the hammer very clearly defines what the hammer would look like. And so I read that, and I could see it, and what I saw when I read it in my mind's eye was not what I had seen before, for the most part, in most incarnations in contemporary and modern versions of the hammer. And so I would send it to Andy, and we went back and forth, and I would just draw it right there and then send it to him, and he would within seconds say, Eric, what about this, send it back, and then I would doodle some more, and we would throw back and forth. He was just getting my doodles, my personal art, and we were just iterating until we got this shape. And then I took that and designed a schematic and sent it to Andrew, and then he was like, okay, what if we paid homage to the dwarves who created
that they signed their work,
that they imprinted their runes into the pommel,
and we hidden their runes into the pommel. Exactly.
So he's like, here's the runes for those dwarves. He sent it to me, and I immediately drew it. And I said, well, what if it had an Art Deco kind of like Nouveau theme? So I drew some Art Deco triangles and angles into the hammer and sent it back to Andy, and he's like, love it. That feels very dwarven. And so this, just going back and forth, we landed on a hand-drawn version of the hammer that then we've taken, and it has gone through versions of just being refined and iterated, and it was something that we created, and that was how we were collaborating, right?
And part of the collaborative process is recognizing when something doesn't work, or how do we reframe or take a different lens on something when we notice an error. So I'll give you a perfect example following up on that hammer. It ultimately proceeded to the artist who developed the preliminary cover art and what's used on the t-shirts. Now, I looked at that, and there are 3 little vignettes on the top of it, on the hammer, that basically show the forging of the hammer, Thor fighting Jormungandr, and what was the third one that I'm forgetting?
This is specifically, he's referencing not the hammer in your thumbnail.
No.
He's referencing on our Kickstarter page, there is a black and white hand-drawn archaic version by an artist known as Runer Hall, who did a version of the hammer that was based off of the fundamental hammer we designed, but he added a runic Norse.
It had 3 little vignettes on top, little medallions, and they're all great. However, I looked at them and I said to Eric, it would be great if the one on the left was actually on the right, and if the whole thing was just reversed. And Eric did the sensible thing that almost any graphic designer would do without even thinking about it. We just mirrored the image. And he printed the t-shirts, and I looked at it and I go, Eric, I don't know if you noticed this, but I know. I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you flipped it, the runes on the bottom still are now flipped. Now, again, one of those looks like an M, which is fine because it's the same backwards. The other one is very clearly backwards. And I sat there and go, okay, Brokey's rune, Berkana, is now backwards. And I sat there and go, Eric, don't worry about it. Don't fix it. Don't point it out to anybody. Don't make an issue. Because in that origin story, Loki has transformed into a gadfly that keeps stinging him while he is trying to forge the hammer. And ultimately, it's because he basically stings him in the eye that the hammer itself ends up the handle is too short. So I sat there going, you know what? Let him sign his name backwards in protest, because he's not fully proud of the work that was crafted. And it's like, you know what? You have an in-universe story
can use it.
That perfectly fits with what otherwise could have been a mistake. And that's kind of how this has worked.
And it honors the source material by being 100% accurate to it, but it's just slightly divergent enough to be innovative, creative, and new.
Exactly. And in terms of other areas of collaboration, again, I started from a point of, I read each chapter individually. I would pick out an element from it that I thought had some meat to it that I could build on, whether an object, a feeling, something. And ultimately, I just pitched an idea for each chapter to Eric. And of the first book, which is 12 chapters, I'm going to say like 9 of them were solid. I had no issue at all. I knew the exact direction I wanted. Eric was happy with that direction, no issue. One of them I admitted was a little weak or a little cliche. Eric pitched an alternate approach to it. Brilliant. Easy to run with, totally different approach. Took it. Another one, we talked through it together because it just wasn't clicking. And the other one, my initial concept was overly political, in a book that goes out of its way to not be political, because the goal is not to alienate anybody based on their ideologies. It really should be a book that anybody could pick up and enjoy. And in that regard, it seemed really silly to have me writing a prelude sub-story. I mean, at the time, we didn't know whether my stuff was coming before a chapter or after it, but it didn't fit the vibe of the book. So we basically threw out everything I had, and ultimately that's the one that turned into this incredibly long-winded chapter 9, which, again, being that this is a sci-fi podcast, I'm happy to point out that goes all the way back to before the Big Bang. I literally recreated the entire Norse myth from before the start of time through the start of time. We get space concepts. There's spaghettification of getting dragged through a wormhole in there. So there is sci-fi in this book.
I like that. Although, fantasy and sci-fi, they're cousins. We love them all here.
Completely agree.
Mentioned all 9 characters in that massive chapter 9 are all queens.
They are.
They are queens. Okay, I'm really going to read chapter 9 first, and then I'm going to go to the other.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's something else. So to answer your question, Nina, I mean, I think that, our collaboration is, I mean, we don't bump heads in the sense of like two people that get mad at each other and start screw you, how dare you. No, it's more of a
sucks.
We challenge each other, but we know that this is a passion project for both of us.
Yeah.
Exactly. It really has become. So there's nothing that's going to diminish that. And we know that both of us are mature adults who love this project, that are coming to it with its best interest in mind. So any feedback that either one of us has that is contrarian to the other is just an opportunity.
Yeah, it's taken in stride.
It's not diminishment.
Yeah, it's really about making the best possible book.
And that's the thing. Ultimately, again, I've worked with other artists and other mediums and things, and it's very common, especially with me coming from the background as an architect, where ego comes into play with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I try very hard not to impose my will on anybody else's. And again, I recognize there are times when, you walk away if you can't find balance. I mean, I can remember going back in high school, I had written a poem. I forget what the subject matter was. But the teacher said, oh, this could be published, but you really need to change a certain line in it for a certain reason. And I said, no, I'm happy with it the way it is. I won't take it. And she said, fine. And it didn't get published. And again, I let it go. It wasn't a big deal. Eric has taken an incredibly different stance. Eric is very much about somewhat hands-off. He'll give guidance and commentary and feedback, but at the same time, he's respecting my creative process and what I can bring to the table. And I've seen him do that with artists on previous projects. I think that's what makes this really just worthwhile overall. It's fairly laid back, even for all of the hard work we're putting into it.
But see, that's why when you write something that you love, that's what happens, because you love it and you're involved in it, you know it, you feel it, and it just kind of flows naturally. And it's hard work, absolutely hard work. And it's very detailed, and you do the research, but because there is that passion for what you're doing, it just flows and it comes natural. And I think both of you have a passion for this topic that kind of connects to one another for sure. And it shows, absolutely.
I would. It's kind of funny because you're humbling me in a way, because the more I work on this project, as we have worked on it now for quite some time and pretty consistently putting the dedicated time into it, it was really easy at the beginning because I was just telling that story that I wanted to tell. And I got to woo, and I got to smash, and I got to excite and titillate and reveal and surprise. But then the story was done, and the refinement and the elevation and the craftsmanship had to be applied to it. It's like an artisan who, casts their first, trinket, or starts carving their their initial human figure out of the rock or the marble. It's all the polish and the going back and continuing to tink at it, refine it, and bring it. that actually has been a lot of hard work, and the love is still there. It just starts to change shape, like any relationship. You know what I mean? It's like,
yes,
you still love the
absolutely.
project, but then it starts to become like greater than the sum of its parts. And it still thrills me to this day to continue to go back and work on this project, because every step of the way, and that's why this collaboration between the two of us has taken something that I thought was a cool idea that people would like, and it was going to be something innovative, fun, and new, to stratospheric heights. This is something completely different than what it set itself out to be. So in that respect, I've gotten to fall in love with it, Nita, over and over again, because it's new. It's like the girlfriend. It's the date that keeps showing up in a new outfit every time with a new personality.
It's like a first date every time.
It's a first, yeah. I mean, well, and it's evolving, and it's continuing to woo me and to dazzle me and to surprise me at what it can go. And we haven't even talked about how cool this book is going to look with art. Full page of. We've got.
Now let's talk about the art.
Who's
doing the art? Are you doing the art or yourself?
So yes, partially. I am a artist on the book.
Okay.
I'm doing all of the graphic design, all of the page design layouts, just like in all of my other previous book, When We Are the Voyage, etc.
Which, for those that have never read any of those books, A, shame on you, and B, Eric does a phenomenal job every time.
Every time, yes.
It's astounding the level of love and care he puts into those graphic designs in the book.
The work that Eric does on his comic books, on his books, there aren't words that could describe the level of quality that he puts into it.
It's insane.
It is absolutely phenomenal.
Yes, I am a artist on the book in the respect of doing some of the graphic design and actually doing some of the I'm doing actually some of the actual art in the interiors. I've designed a bunch of drop caps, which are those large illustrated letters at the beginning of a paragraph at that chapter head, which is really cool. So I've done some of those by hand. I've done some inset icons that I've drawn. I drew, obviously the original concept of the hammer. And so there's a lot of elements of my art in there, as well as a lot of the background texturing that I do for the pages. Every page, this isn't a black and white book. Every page is full illustrated color.
Nice.
So it's going to be gorgeous. And every chapter has its own thematic design schema to it. And then all Andy's chapters have their own design schema to them.
And my chapters have their own dedicated artist. His chapters have a dedicated artist. The interludes in between the three acts each have a dedicated artist. And the cover has a dedicated artist.
So we're bringing back Leo Colapietro on the cover. We've got Runer Hall. That's his pen name.
His handle,
but it's Philippe Texiera.
He's going to be doing the ancient,
doing
ornate scroll work types of things that goes on my sections.
His artwork you can see on our Kickstarter page is that black and white sort of runic ancient looking, weathered, really cool Norse art. Then we've got Jamie Ryan, who you know, Jamie from Voyage. He's doing art on the interludes. And then we have a brand new artist, Gabriel Anibal Riart from Brazil, who is,
Nice.
no, wait, he's from, Runer's from Brazil. Where the heck is Gabriel from? I don't know. Somewhere in South America. I forgot. He's
You just
awesome.
picking people. You don't know where they're from.
Gabriel, I actually started commissioning art for Thor with Gabriel before I even had the beta done. Just when it was still concept work. He was doing, I had hired him to do some concept designs of my version of Thor. And then I went on to contract with him to do pages for all the chapters. And, everything is inspired by creative briefs that I write and I send to each of the artists based on the actual content in the book. So it's going to be a really visually immersive experience.
Yes.
So you've got Andy, me, four artists?
Four artists plus your work, yeah.
So six collaborators on this project right now, and we're going to be bringing you something really cool. And the project is split into 2 books. It's a duology.
Nice.
And I can fully guarantee that because of my influence, book 2 has substantially changed from what Eric initially set it out to be.
I'm pretty sure that's going to happen again.
I've actually
sure.
I've joked with Eric, and it's one of my favorite things about the book because he gave me some highlights about, oh, this character is going to appear in the second book. I go, oh, Eric, that's so cute. He appears in chapter 4. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Andy actually did me dirty. He actually pulled one of my characters out of book 2 that I have not revealed in book 1 and pulled him into book 1 into his vignette. And I was like, you son of a bitch. Fine, it works. You get it.
It works.
And the funny thing is, the average reader will never know it until book 2 comes out and you reread the first book. But there are clues in my section that will inform or forecast things that are coming later.
We have been thinking, we have planned the entire arc so that elements in this first book do not become our Easter eggs for book 2.
And the fun part will be when we get to book 2, I will then have the homework of figuring out how I write those 12 sections while feeding Easter eggs that refer back to the first book that were never planned in the first place.
Exactly. You do have to make sure you actually touch on all of them.
Yes, this is intended to be recursive unto ourselves.
Here?
Yeah, it's going to be great.
It's Ouroboros. It's the world serpent.
Now,
he's eating his tail.
What would you do differently, each of you, going back, knowing what you already know, what you've already done? If you could go back, if you could break the rules and go back in time, what would you do differently?
I mean, in an ideal world, and it's really, really stretching, I obviously came into the book late. The book was written, and then I came in and I layered on top of it with the goal of elevating Eric's work. Yes. In theory, had I been involved from day one, would the course of the book be different? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to say it would be better. It would probably be different, but I'm not disappointed in any way. Again, Eric's story unto itself is a lot of fun. It's not your average Thor. It brings you a different type of romance than one is accustomed to. Again, we're not going to pretend that this is the comic book Thor. There's literally a handful, a light smattering of poking fun at the comics version, because we intentionally do not want to be that. And yeah, I mean, I think it would be just a different product, but I'm very proud of it. And we still give you some action in the book too. You can't have Thor just sit on the sideline.
Oh God, no!
That's not going to be a fun book.
You can't write a Thor story and not have a little action.
No, there has.
If
he's not swinging the hammer or beating something, what are we doing here?
Exactly. I need to read something that says he's swinging that hammer somehow, but somebody's getting hit with it. That's what I want to know.
And again, there'll be some teasing. You're not going to get it right away, But again, the foreplay is part of the fun.
Yes, absolutely. And how about you, Eric? Would you change anything of the process that you maybe try? Not necessarily because you would want to do it better, but maybe because you stumbled too much before you got to the results you were looking for.
I would say the former, because there would be things I would want to make better.
Yeah.
Because and in collaborating with Andy on this, one of the things that his expertise has brought to the mashup is such a grandiose cosmic scale to everything we're doing, where my story that I wrote, and we should probably talk a little bit before this is up about what the story is about, just so people.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
because I know we've teased it a lot, but that's a lot of foreplay. People are like, okay, I'm all hot and bothered here. What's the book about?
Well, I wanted to
Totally
leave
fair.
that up to you guys because I didn't want spoilers.
Yeah, sure.
Which is largely why, again, I've hinted at elements of my sub-stories, but I really don't want to spoil much of Eric's side.
Well, let me finish saying
Go
what
ahead.
I'm saying about your grandiosity. Is that he thinks at such a cosmic sort of scale and such a macro, a microscopic macro look at the source material. And this is something that I just kind of punish myself as a creator, is that I always want to do better. I always think, there's always those ideas that don't materialize until after the fact, that, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that, right? So in effort to produce the best possible book that I can, I would have liked to have started the collaboration earlier, in hindsight, but that's okay. I'm fine with that. I think it's a really good experience. But then there's the part of me that's just the part of me that's always sort of niggling at anything that I produce, that I always feel like I could have done better with, is that, like, is there a way at this point now I can get in all those extra things that I want to get in, that have manifested and realized in this collaboration that I didn't know before? But the craftsman in me is very judicious about bloat, reader experience, scope creep, and making sure that I'm not just satisfying a need that I feel that I have because I'm bugged about something, but that I'm really servicing the reader and the experience of the work holistically. So I have to be very careful with those feelings. And I think any writer or creator has those sort of questions, regrets, anticipatory fears, and things of that nature. So, and I think the second thing is, I probably would do a better job, and this leading to what I said, of building the right kind of anticipation for this book. I think where I have, as an indie self-published creator, failed in the past is in service of keeping the source material mysterious or not wanting to spoil the experience with the book, I've not necessarily done a great job marketing the book, and hence my sales have been really slow, and I've had low adoption on some of my projects. So I feel like I need to let go and just tell people, this is what When We Are the Voyage is about. These are what the pages are going to look like, and this is why it's going to blow your mind. Whereas my approach was, no, you need to really get this and then go look at it. And believe me, it's going to blow your mind.
I mean, it does.
Instead of just
it does. It really does.
So I feel like I have a lesson to learn there with Thor, that I gotta not, as a creator, hold it too close to my chest when we get closer to releasing it, and just let people inside the book I don't know why I'm like that. I guess that's just one of my flaws and one of my
So
growth opportunities.
I want to know what this book. Tell us about this book and tell us about the Kickstarter because we've got the Kickstarter link. Scrolling is in the description, but we need to know when that starts, when it's gonna,
Sure.
what's the closing date of that. We want to know everything because we're in your business. Because these people need to get their life in order and make sure that they participate because it's come on, guys. Oh, these two are going to be awesome, and their book
Yeah.
is going to be awesome.
Would you like me to tell them?
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Again, you've got the core story. I'll give little teasers on the
All
sub
right.
stories.
You'll cheer me on.
He's so generous. He's so generous.
He's great. He's a good friend. Okay, so what the heck is this book Thor even about? Just the title's just Thor.
You're not giving anything away
It's
with
so
that.
generic.
It's so generic.
Did you see that white and black print?
Nothing. It doesn't tell you anything. So the idea behind it was to blend poetry, literary quality, novella experience, craftsmanship with illustrations, and to create a graphic novel presentation of a story about Thor, the Norse god of thunder, among other things. And he is a god who is a man. And it is mid-1990s Seattle. It's the grunge period. It's gray. It's wet. It's rainy. The music's awesome. The vibe is cool. Thor is living in the Pacific Northwest. And he is tired of being a god. He's just had it.
As one does get.
The expectations, the demands, the prophecy, all of those things that have loomed over him for millennia are just not a burden that he wants to carry anymore. And so he's been living in the Pacific Northwest for some time, working as a common dock worker, living in Belltown, off of the docks near Pike's Place. And he's working 9 to 5 with his hands. He is unloading fish that come in off the ferry boats, and he has a small apartment and he's living a quiet life. What does that look like when the god of thunder, the slayer of Jotun, the god of thunder has basically cast off his mantle and wants to,
he's like on a
vacation and also sort of just an abandonment of everything that his mythos has told him that he is supposed to be, and the expectations that he's been told that he is supposed to carry, and the prophecies that lead ultimately up to Ragnarok in the Norse mythos that are going to change his life and what he's planned to be or do. And those are a burden that he's done with. He's just done with it. And during this new life, let's put it, his paths cross with a human woman named Anna. And she is a archivist. She is a paper restorer. She works in the Seattle Public Library in the 90s. Did a lot of research on this. I mean, this book is very legit, like down to the places they work and live.
Without exaggeration, when I was going through with my fine-tooth comb, I was looking up the places he was mentioning, pulling it up on Google Maps and seeing exactly where they are and seeing, all right, does this street cross with that? Does this reference work? And when he would mention something, I'd sit there and go, did this exist in the 90s? And if the answer was no, Eric, we got an issue here.
No, I researched it.
You know how important that is? One thing that frustrates me is either reading or watching a movie where like New York is mentioned and you're going, no, that's wrong.
Oh,
Did
yeah,
you think we're not going to notice that?
Yeah, especially if you know or were in the Pacific Northwest in the mid '90s, you will feel the legitimacy of the situation that we've crafted. And so, anyways, so he meets Anna, and Anna is a human, and she has a very specific role in the restoration of ancient manuscripts and archival works in the library, which is really convenient, let's put it, for somebody who happens to be her neighbor across the apartment hall, who is a god. And their paths cross and they fall in love. And so there's a really interesting question: what happens to the god who has abandoned being a god and this paper restorer, let's say Anna? What happens when they fall in love? And how is prophecy really realized? And what does the ancient manuscripts and the expectations of interpretation, what do they really mean?
Yeah.
And so we really get to play around with this story of their love, how that evolves, how the love of a human and the god transforms the human, and how it transforms the god. And then we also get to explore someone who's lived for millennia and millennia, has a lot of grudges, a lot of baggage, and a lot of expectations. So over the course of this first book in these 12 chapters, we get introduced to a whole pantheon of characters from Norse mythology who have reasons to get involved with their relationship. And that comes to varying different results and degrees, getting between the two of them. And
nice.
yeah, so I don't want to give much more away than that at this point, but
That's
it really does.
I think that paints a very beautiful picture that can
Yeah.
that
And
captivates
I want to throw
audiences.
in one additional disclaimer, because I know a lot of people listening probably do read comic books. And
Yes.
for those that currently read Marvel, Al Ewing is currently writing the Mortal Thor coming off of the Immortal Thor. And I am fully up to date on both of those. And the important thing you need to know is Eric is not. Eric has not read any of those. So there is nothing in common whatsoever between current Marvel mythos exploring the immortal nature of godhood, or what it means to be on the mortal side of that equation. Eric is coming in blind. I'm not feeding him any information pertaining to it, and you can tell instantly these are very different. Perfect example I mentioned before, the current Marvel book has a lot of political ideas being laid into it, and it's very effective. Ewing is a great writer. But the important thing is, this book is not trying to do that. This is not trying to put a message forward to you. It's trying to tell you a compelling, fun, interesting story with dynamic characters, a very robust, built-up world that feels completely authentic because, again, Eric lived in Seattle in the 1990s, so he knows it personally. At the same time, we're trying to respect the original Norse mythos to the fullest extent we're able to, recognizing that, yeah, there are spots where we just don't know all the details. And
Exactly.
you know what? I don't feel that bad about a little artistic liberty to say, how do we fill those in?
Exactly. And that's okay. That's the great thing about writing and creating. You can create a world and have these elements that are true and factual, surrounded with something that's new and fictional and something that you just kind of made up. And that's beautiful.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed working on this project. Tonally, it's very different from my last biggest project,
Yes.
which was Cosmic Horror. I mean, this is a very different, tonally, we mentioned romance already, but there's also action and there's suspense. There is thrilling and engaging conversations, let's put it.
You might find this funny, but to me, this was one. I'm not going to totally spoil the chapter, but it's my favorite chapter, so I'm going to lightly acknowledge it. there is a chapter that's about intellectual and academic rigor and how you do that, which very, very much mirrors Eric's process in the beginning of researching and what I was putting into crafting my sections. And to me, that was the most engaging part of the book. And it seems so slice of life and mundane, and I just could not get enough of it. It's like the longest chapter in the book. It's great.
Yeah, he's like, Andy came back to me, he said, I've never read a chapter about somebody reading about a chapter and come away not getting enough of that chapter. I've never read a chapter about somebody researching a chapter, wanting to read more of that person
About a
researching the
chapter.
chapter. It was
Yes.
like,
It was very entertaining. So again, there is some lighthearted nature to it. Again, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a comedy, but
there's humor.
You could say there's humor, and again, there's to some degree a rom-com nature to aspects of the book.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there's a transformation that happens to Thor as he sort of shrugs off his solitude and embraces humanism and embraces humor and the sensibility of a very dynamic protagonist in Anna, the female lead, who's very gregarious, smart. She challenges the god, who's very stoic, and that creates opportunities for humor, right? When you have someone that's so rigid and set in his ways, and he's comes up against this crashing wave of a beautiful librarian, and it really kind of challenges the dynamic. But then, I will say we've got your typical cast of characters you are expecting in a Thor book. Loki.
Yes.
Oh, you
Others.
have to have Loki.
Of course.
Again, there are certain big names that if you don't have them, every reader's going to sit there and go, why did we do this? What's happening? It doesn't make any sense to me. And no one could blame you for that. But what Eric did very well is he introduces a bunch of characters that you might have heard of in a random story here or there, or you very likely could have forgotten this character even exists.
Yeah.
And that makes it a little more unexpected at times.
Absolutely. Now tell us about the Kickstarter, because we want to know what people need to know. What's going on with the Kickstarter? When can they start?
So you can go to that scrolling link anytime. You could have gone there, or please go there now. And it is absolutely essential that we get every single watcher of the Sci-Fi Queens who are checking out this video right now to go to that link and click follow. It is essential to us having a successful campaign out of the gate that you at least show that you are interested in learning more about this project. The Kickstarter, we are setting it to launch on October 26th, which coincides with what's called the Winter's Night, and I dare not pronounce the actual word it comes from in Norse.
I'm not going to embarrass myself.
But it actually is a legitimate thing, which is the first day of the Norse's winter calendar year.
Oh, that's actually quite fitting.
Exactly. It felt very poetic.
Yes.
And I think it's a Monday. Was it a Monday? I forgot what day it is. But everything about it seemed in the stars.
Yes.
For whatever reason, we were like, yeah, that seems like a perfect day to get
You said October
26th, right?
Which is a Monday.
26th is a Monday. Yeah, it's a Monday.
And so Monday seemed great. And the idea being is that we'll probably are looking at running the campaign for a month.
Yeah.
Because we would like to, fulfillment's always very important to me on every Kickstarter I've ever run. It's very important to me to get books in hands fast. I hate waiting for Kickstarters myself, and I hate to do that to my readers. So I would like to be able to have people to have this book in their hands for the holidays and being able to gift it to others for the holidays.
We're trying.
That's my goal. I mean,
again, we should be able to finish up the writing side and polishing that up without any problem. We're still waiting on a little bit of art to come in, but we're optimistic that the timelines will all work out and we should be able to do fulfillment this year.
That's excellent.
October 26th, 30 days, end of November, and then we would start shipping at the beginning of December, hopefully. That would be the goal.
That would be perfect for the holidays.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really just depends on how successful the Kickstarter is. If we get sort of a lukewarm reception, it's we will be more motivated by the greater turnout, to make sure that we get that like delivered and in people's hands right away, because it really depends on, and it's going to help us be able to be more deliberate with our printers, because there's some really cool things we want to do, but the Kickstarter will tell us if the readers want it or not. Like, for example, me personally, I would love to do like a gold foil, like stamped, and it comes with Mjolnir, and you have a hammer.
A little tiny hammer.
I would love to do like this, like the book is the hammer. The hammer is the book. Like I would love to do crazy stuff like this.
Can you make the book the shape of a hammer?
That's right. Right. So like there's a lot of ideas I have for doing that, but then ultimately the Kickstarter is going to tell us realistically what the demand is. If everybody's like, no, we just want the $20 paperback and that's all we want, and
we don't need the hammer, thank you very much.
They're like, Eric,
we can be realistic.
You can do that for yourself.
Yes,
but and that's fine, and that's absolutely fine. But that's what I like about the Kickstarters. It sort of helps me sort of read the temperature in the room and figure out what it is that the demand really is. But I'm really excited about this project, and I was a little bit leery personally, just as a creator, going out and saying this is part one of the duology. But
we debated that whether we needed to actually make this into a full double length entry and just call it a day, and we ultimately decided that no, this needs to be in manageable sections. The first half felt right to us.
Yeah, I think that when people see the War and Peace size books, they kind of get overwhelmed.
And we don't want that.
No.
I mean, that's the other thing.
And you want people to enjoy it. You want people to, when they end the book, they understood and still remember what they started reading. But when you have a book that's that big, you're going, what was it that they said in the beginning?
And specifically in this style, Nita, that is more akin to my Before We Weren't Anywhere.
Yes.
Pacing. It is basically almost kind of like a beefed up version of that in regards to like the structural content. It's very fast paced.
It reads very comfortably.
It reads very quick. The use of poetic techniques and enjambments and line breaks and the way words flow down the page creates a really fast-paced book. So you'll be able to, this is a book you'll be able to sit down and you could read in a day and then go back and read it again and really just like find.
But again, if you really wanted to, you don't have to feel compelled you have to read it in a day. You've got 12 chapters, you've got 3 interludes, you've got 12 prologue sub-stories.
12 days, a chapter
so
a day.
Again, you could very easily make this into your own personal advent calendar if you want to.
There you go. The Thor advent calendar book.
Open the Rune calendar and take out your little chocolate.
Oh, there you go. That's an idea. Put little chocolates in each chapter.
Yeah. No, it's been a lot of fun, Nita. It's been a really cool project. I can't believe that we are so close to the finish line.
It's true.
I mean,
really, October to start.
Yeah, we're not far away. September is days away.
Yeah, it's really just at the final. And I was telling Andy, one of my goals is I really want this to be, when we launch that Kickstarter, those files are already in the hands of the printer. All we're waiting on is the number of books for them to tell them how many.
Fingers crossed.
I don't want to. I mean, that's my goal. I mean, that's my keep me up late at night, adding more gray hairs to this gray, is trying to hit that. Yeah. Because I want to.
But I'm telling you guys, if you have read anything that Eric Williamson has put out, you know this is going to be fire. It's going to be awesome. You guys have to get your life in order. Get to that Kickstarter, like it, and pledge, because You're gonna love this book. I know that for a fact.
And
It
Nita,
need, and nothing you have ever put out I have not liked. So I'm pretty confident when I say I'm gonna like this. I know I
Nita,
am.
if you'll indulge me, I've got one other thing I
Yes,
do want to bring up that may give
absolutely.
your viewers another reason why they might take an interest in wanting to buy this book.
Yes.
I'm actually donating 100% of
Yes.
my profits from the book to the Women Aware charity. And there's a specific reason that now, just for perspective, my share of this book is about 25%. I think that's what we had agreed on. And what happened was earlier this year, a close personal friend of my wife and I was killed in Washington, D.C., in that area.
Terrible.
It was. And we've been mourning her and celebrating her all year long. And ultimately, Eric let me do something very, very unique in this book. Originally in chapter 8 is the Vunjo rune, which is about joy. And I said, before any of this happened, I said, wouldn't it be great to write a chapter about a really upbeat perspective on death? Somebody ruminating on where they're going to go in the afterlife. Are they going to Valhalla? Are they going to Folkvanger? Are they just going to hell? What is it going to be? And then after this tragedy with my friend being murdered, I said, you know what, Eric? I am so angry at the world right now because I'm reading all the media coverage of her death, and I felt it was incredibly disrespectful. And I didn't like that they were highlighting the person that had perpetuated the crime and other details of it. So I said, you know what, Eric? I would like to memorialize her here and actually write a proper obituary framed in the context of if this was being published in mid 90s in the Scandinavian community up in Seattle. And we will put a spin on it that makes it feel very authentic to the culture. And my friend celebrated pagan deities. She practiced magic. A lot of her personality fit with the types of things that would come up here anyways. And while I initially write the obituary, the second page actually gives you a little bit of a follow-up of, well, if those grieving only knew what actually came next, this is what comes next. And it gives her a much more dignified, proper send-off. I take a veiled swipe at the media for celebrating the people that commit these atrocities.
Exactly.
And again, I wanted to honor her by basically donating 100% of my portions of the book. Not speaking for Eric's, that's not fair, just mine. So my 25% will go to the Women's Aware charity in Middlesex, New Jersey, to support women suffering from domestic abuse and things of that nature. So if you need any other incentive, it's going to charity in part.
That is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful charity, a beautiful, just heartwarming gift that you're giving this charity, because you don't have to be that generous, but you are choosing to be. And you could have just written her in and not then left it at that, but you didn't. And I think that was really beautiful. Sometimes we don't know what to do when we're grieving, and we don't know how to heal. And I think
Exactly.
this is a beautiful way to heal the community who lost a beautiful soul.
You know what? And it was such for me, it was such an interesting ask when Andy came to me with it. And because we're friends, I feel his emotions and we share personal things about each other's lives. And so when he came to me and he told me about this horrendous act, of course, and I don't know his friend. I've never met her. I've learned more about her since then, and I've been able to see glimpses into her glorious life and what a treasure she was, and the impact that she's had on her loved ones and family and friends. So when his request came to me, I had to be honest. At first, I was a little bit nervous because of the ask. I want to walk the line of being a friend and then being a content creator, and and honoring the project first. But I saw what Andy did with this piece, and how he took our core idea for that particular vignette that he worked on and elevate it to honor her and honor the work. And for me, it became a no-brainer at that point, because I want, if this book can provide that gift in a way to the loved ones that she's left behind, to sort of honor her, because that's sort of the essence of the book at its heart, is honoring the core mythology of the Eddas. So it aligned with the true nature of the book. So I said, absolutely, it needs to be in there. And what he crafted and what's in there now is just beautiful, and it elevates the story, and it works so perfect.
And the thing is, it's not a downer. At the end of the day, it is honest. It's even modeled on her own mother's obituary to some extent, but it jumps off from it in such a different direction that celebrates so many aspects of her life, including things that go, again, I can't talk about Lush Cosmetics in the mid-90s. I can't talk about Taylor Swift when she's 2 years old, but I can sneak in words like Lush or Swift, and we're still referencing aspects of things that she did care about. We can talk about her burlesque performances. We can talk about her time as a barista, things that did matter. And we can do it in a dignified, responsible way that actually, even if you've never met her, you can read this and say, this sounds like a fascinating person. And the funny thing is, if you do a little Google searching, you can still find her.
You'll find her.
You can still find her. She's still out there. And I really hope that people will read that second page and see what came next that none of us got to be privy to. And I feel like it gives a really great closure.
That's beautiful.
On what would otherwise be a really dark, hard part of this year for a lot of us.
And turning something so tragic into something so beautiful to give back to a worthy cause. You couldn't get any better than that.
She loved literature. Her pagan deities were Persephone and Hades, so Greek mythology, but really she was basically a witch. But again, at the end of the day, a whole lot of personality. Everyone she ever met was basically a best friend. And again, most understanding, sweetest person you could ever ask for, that never deserved what she got. And this felt like the least I could do to bring dignity and memory to her.
I'm sure she appreciates and loves this more than words can say. I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful gift to her memory and to the cause that can help other women avoid that outcome.
I mean, again, that's why I say selfishly, I hope the Kickstarter does great and we have a ton of people that are interested. But I want everybody to know I stand to profit nothing from this, because I want that money to go to people that really need the help.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I'm so glad you guys came on. Thank you so much for coming on, for talking to us about this project of yours, this book. And we're definitely going to get that circulated. Guys, go to the Kickstarter project. The link is there. It's going to be in the description. And let's support this project now even more, okay? Because let's be part of the giving back to a group of people, a group of women who could use some support during a really difficult time in their life. Before we go, I do have a couple of announcements. The Sci-Fi Queens are going to be taking a bit of a break from September 4th, returning October 9th. And we're going to have for you what's next in sci-fi TV, movie, and what's canceled, what's going on in sci-fi and fantasy. We're going to give you the latest. We are like the TV guide of science fiction, okay? So we're going to give you what's going on. And we'll be back October 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Andy, for being here and for sharing this beautiful project with us. Um, and you guys have a great night and a great rest of your weekend. Bye,
Thanks, Nita.
guys. Thank you for watching the Sci-Fi Queens. And be sure to support us on all our social medias. And check out our website.